Welcome back to another edition of Inside Great Lakes Sailing. We are lucky enough to have one of the premier female sailors, small boat sailors here in the Midwest with Chrisy Hughes. Chrisy, first of all, welcome to come aboard the show. I have the Island Minnetonka Yacht Club behind me where you belong. And first of all, let me say thank you for coming aboard and having a conversation. And we have some very specific subjects to talk about today. So again, thanks. And just briefly, before we get started, talk to me about an island yacht club. I think that's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, you know what? It is really cool. We love it. It definitely has some logistical challenges that go with it. But the Minnetonka Yacht Club has been around for over 100 years. I think it's coming up on maybe 130. It's always been on that island. The Lake Minnetonka Sailing School operates out of there. We've got about 600 members, social and racing, and it's in full operation from May till, I think, next weekend. So lots of stuff going on out there. All Scows racing along with open fleet, which is some random keel boats, and catamarans. So good racing community.
We're going to come back to the club because I want to talk about a couple programs that are involved in the club that I think a lot of other clubs could benefit from, and we'll get to that. But I want to talk about you. You're a two-time national champion, and you've been on a number of boats. You're also on the committee for U.S. Sailing for One Design Publicity and Development.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
Let's. Can I talk about that first? And
sure.
What is the idea behind, obviously it's promotion of one sail design, but what is it that you do and how did it all get started?
Well, it got started, I think this committee started about a year ago. Chris Snow is the leader of it. And what US Sailing is really wanting to do is just pull together all the One Design fleets and really open up communication amongst fleets so that the e-boaters talk to the J22 people and the laser people. And we're really just working on creating a method to open that communication and get everybody flowing. There's a One Design landing page on the US Sailing website, which is new, and it's a great resource. You know, if I'm going to Michigan or Florida and I want to see where there's a laser fleet that I could hop into, you can go right on there and see where the fleets are around the country. And we're also working on sourcing articles and publishing things that can help One Design fleets grow and be managed better and solve some of the problems that everybody has.
Before we started this interview, we were talking a little bit about maybe the lack of communication that the sailing world suffers from. Mm-hmm. Is this one of those vehicles that sort of helps that process of being able to talk to each other? And then the follow-up question is, do we talk to each other enough? And is it something we got to press harder?
Yeah, well, I think that that's the goal. I mean, we're working on it. It's a little bit of a slow process trying to come up with the method and get everybody on board and educated on what's happening. So that's our goal, and that's what we're working on. I don't think the One Design fleets talk much amongst themselves, as far as I can tell. But there are a lot of One Design fleets that are super organized and really well run. And there's plenty of communication within that individual fleet. It's just getting them to go back and forth. Like, I'm part of the National Class E-Scow Association, and we're super well run and really organized. And if anything, we probably over communicate on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and through our website and member mailings. And there's a lot of big One Design fleets like that, but I think it's maybe some of the smaller ones that could benefit from talking with other fleets.
Does the regionalism of the specific boat also have something to do with that? That they're, you don't see any E-Scows on Lake St. Clair or the big lakes because it's a small lake boat.
Right.
So it becomes geography. Sometimes the guys in this part of the world, Lake Michigan doesn't necessarily talk to Lake Huron or Lake Erie. They all
Sure.
have associations, but
Yeah.
their commitment to each other because of a short season, certainly 4 or 5 months in a year. Does
Yeah.
geography play a part of that?
You know, I don't know. Probably. I don't know, but like I said, lasers, J22s, J24s, they're all over the place, and they have real strong class associations, sonars, lightnings. So, I don't know how much. I think it plays into more the class management and the class organization. And, is it volunteer run? Are they paying somebody to run it? Do they have 30 members or do they have 1,000? I think it's more the size and the level of effort that's put into being organized.
Okay. Being the rookie as it relates to organizational sail racing, somebody will have a national championship and there'll be 9 boats.
Yeah.
I don't think of a national championship with 9 people in it. Well, I finished 9th in the country. It sounds great, but if you're 9th of 9th, it's a different perspective. So I understand that geography plays a part in the fleets because not everybody's going to be able to come everywhere.
Right.
If you're the long jump champion for the United States, you are in fact the best long jump athlete in the country. I'm not sure that's necessarily true in sailboats.
Yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily, because it's all who's at the regatta, like you said. I mean, if we're at a dud location, which we generally don't do, and people don't show up, if the top 4 or 5 teams don't show up, then it might not be exactly an adequate representation of who the best is.
Okay, so my question would be then, is it helpful that should U.S. Sailing get more involved in maybe that communication part, or are they doing, maybe it's just the nature of the sport?
I think that what the U.S. Sailing, what we're trying to do with the One Design Committee is more like, how are you going to grow your fleet? How are you going to better communicate? What kind of scantlings, how tight should they be? How do you control your level of one design? I think it's more those kinds of things rather than direct promotion. I think that those kinds of things, that leadership has to get tightened up first. And then when that happens, you'll probably see the people attending the regattas more. And how do you run a good regatta? The regattas have really evolved over the years. It's become, the social component is equal to the racing, and at least in the E fleet, the sailors are very demanding on the race committee and the PRO. We're not going all this time to race and spend all this money to have a bunch of general recalls or abandoned races when we could be sailing and this and that. So there's a lot of pressure on the race committee too to perform.
Right. Well, and the other part too is that with race committees, we're starting to see more and more information about we're wearing race committees out. The age of some of the race committee members it continues to increase.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to race and nobody wants to,
Totally.
sit on a boat.
Well, it's kind of a thankless job. I mean, it's hard to win if you're a PRO.
Well, I think of referees in sports, no matter what they do, if they do a great job, nobody cares. If they do a bad job, everybody hates them.
Exactly. It's the same.
Maybe then part of what U.S. Sailing is pulling together is maybe that information that you guys do something in the Scow that might be helpful in the J24s.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of communication we're talking about.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now where did you start sailing? I'm curious.
I started sailing here in Minnesota. I've got my family. I have 5 older brothers, and it was kind of our family sport. So although we didn't live here in Minnetonka, we always cruised out to the lake every weekend, and my brothers raced, and I started tagging along. And then from when I was probably 12 to 15, I raced a Yingling with my dad. A Yingling's a 2 or 3 person keelboat. And then I also spent my summers at summer camp in northern Minnesota, and there was a lot of sailing up there. So that's pretty much how I did most of my sailing. And then I sailed in college at a club level.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to Ohio Wesleyan, which is
Oh,
just north of Columbus.
yes, I know it well.
Mhm.
It's a great lacrosse school. We have
Great
interactions with. We have
Yeah.
interactions with. They've
Yeah.
got a great football stadium that was built 1937.
Yeah,
Of
it's
all
old
things.
and it's beautiful.
It's
Definitely.
it's right. If you're going to Columbus from Michigan, you can see
Yeah.
it from the road. It's a cool school and a great academic school.
Yeah, it was really good. I had a good time there, and just kind of fell into sailing. I got there as a freshman, and happened to meet some people. I'm like, oh, there's a sailing club, perfect. So we had a great core group of about 12 people that really stuck together for 3 years, definitely. And we traveled spring and fall. We went everywhere, and we sailed FJs and 420s, and it was very fun. It was a great part of college.
Mom and dad sail?
We were fair. Dad sails.
Okay.
Mom does not. Yeah.
So mom watches.
Mom watches.
Okay.
Yeah, but she has to.
Now you've matriculated into being one of the best scow sailors in the Midwest.
Thank you.
Why that boat? What is it that boat that you like so much? I think it's a fabulous boat, but
Well, I mean, yeah, e-boats are the best for sure, in my opinion. 28 feet, scow, 3 or 4 crew, depending on the wind. Lots of power, really fast. There's a very strong e-fleet here at Minnetonka. I think we've got 20 boats right now, average about 20. And why e-boat for me? Because as I said, my brothers sailed, so they were e-boaters. And one brother, my brother Bill Barnett in particular, was a very competitive e-boat sailor. And so when I was in college and then graduated, he's like, okay, it's time to sail. So he got me going. I sailed with Tom Burton, who's a guy from here who's won a ton. And I sailed with my brother Bill and Bill Allen, who, they're all great sailors. Bill Allen has a gold medal. So I sailed with them as a kid and just kind of got into it. And then I switched, and I was the 4th crew behind a great local woman here named Kitty Cochran. And she did the middle of the boat. And when I say the middle of an e-boat, it means you're trimming the spinnaker and doing the traveler and the boom bang and the boards, all that stuff. So Kitty was awesome. She is awesome. And I watched her for a couple of years, and then she, moved on, and I moved into her spot, had a great team there, and then just kind of evolved from there. So,
in some of the
you learn by sailing with great people.
is there, and I'm going to ask a neophyte question. I've never been on a scow, so I don't know the answer to this. Is
Okay.
it much different than sailing a traditional 22 or J22 or J24 or any other smaller boat of that same nature?
Oh yeah, totally different. I would say it's way more physical. It's way faster. If there's any breeze at all, you want to keep the angle of the heel of the boat at a pretty consistent, not super high angle. So we've got our feet in the hiking strap, knees bent a little bit, butt over the side of the rail, and hiking out. So if there's breeze, you're basically doing like a crunch for an hour while doing your jobs and stuff. So it's super physical, and it's very much teamwork. Don't have to climb over any winches and hatches and things like that.
It sounds a little bit like being on a star. I mean, there's some similarities
Yeah.
in terms of hanging out.
Maybe. I've never been on a starboat, but maybe.
There's a lot of stars around here, and the second guy has to go over the edge without any kind of apparatus to hold him up. So you've got to have core strength to be able to pull yourself back in the boat.
Yeah, exactly.
For us old guys, that counts me out. I can't do a sit up, but it moves forward. Scows are fast too, right?
Super fast. We were just in Torch Lake, Michigan for our nationals a couple weeks ago, and it was windy on Saturday. We did 3 races, and going downwind at one point, we were going 19 knots. So yeah, I mean, we're ripping. It's really fast.
Now I know that I think Harry Melgis the 4th, who we had on a couple weeks ago, was at Torch Lake. I think they won the nationals. Where'd you guys finish?
That's correct. We were 4th.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, thank you. It was.
Who's
fun.
on your crew? Who's on that crew?
That team was Sam Rogers is the skipper, and then myself, my daughter Martha Hughes,
Yeah,
who's 15. She was on the jib, she just started doing that this year, and she crushed it. She's good. And then Kyle Navin from Lake Geneva was our fourth crew. He sat right behind me and helped me with my jobs, and it was great. We had a great weekend.
The Melges Championship was held at our club here.
Mm-hmm.
A gentleman by the name of Mr. Potter, I believe is his last name.
Porter?
Porter. Yeah, Porter.
Brian Porter. Yeah.
Yeah. He won the national championship.
He did.
And it was surprising how many good Lake Geneva sailors were here and did a great job. I mean, they were fabulous sailors.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of those 24 sailors translate into e-boaters. Brian and his team are awesome e-boaters too. They've won a ton of national championships. You should talk to him at some point too.
Yeah. From what I know of northern Minnesota, Torch Lake is very similar. So it's kind of a very similar atmosphere, I would think, for you coming over here.
Yeah, Torch Lake correlates with northern Minnesota, like cabin country, really well. Our water is not as clear and gorgeous as it is in Torch Lake.
Right.
But yeah, the feel and the woods and the cottages and the houses definitely ring true to northern Minnesota.
There's a standard joke. We spend a lot of time in that part of the world in the wintertime because that's where our ski hills are.
Mm-hmm.
There's a joke that most every house on Torch Lake has got to be at least $1.5 million to start. So the joke is at the north end that they built a very private, quiet, secret water purification plant to make it like that. It's not. It's a very deep lake and it's spring fed, but it's a gorgeous place to sail.
It really is fun. And when you say it's deep, one thing that we did this year at the national championship that was pretty cool. For the first time, we used Markset Bots, which is a Detroit company. I'm sure you know about them. So we used those to eliminate the anchor lines and the problem setting lines and changing marks. And it was pretty slick. It worked really well.
The junior sailing center, of which we run out of, Markset Bot, is right at our club. So he's right. We've been watching those for 4 or 5 years until all of a sudden, I think the first time they used those was at the Super Series in Italy for the 52s.
Mm-hmm.
And got great reviews over there. And then all of a sudden the company took off. And I really think it's revolutionary we had a chance to have a conversation with Tim Moran, who owns the company.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's going to revolutionize sailing because they've worked the bugs out, put it that way.
Yeah. And it's getting better every year.
Yeah. And if you're a race committee member, you appreciate it because it has a GPS and a compass on it. So it goes right to exactly the spot you want.
Yep. Exactly.
And it's pretty cool to be able to, change the courses and do some of those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just you cruise at all, or is it straight racing?
Oh gosh, I wish I did, but I don't really. I mean, we've had a couple of fun family vacations down in the islands, but aside from that, no. We talk about it every summer because when we take our neighbors or our friends, like, rarely, like maybe twice in 5 years, they're just like, oh my God, this is what you do? Like, this is crazy. This is not what I was expecting at all. So we should do more of that, but we don't.
Is there any aspirations at this point you've had? I mean, it's racing every day. It's all summer. It's obviously when the weather gets cold, you go back inside the house. But is there any aspirations for you as a sailor?
Well, I mean, we're just stepping into this Melges 15 thing. My daughter and I did the winter series last year. So that was super fun to get down to Sarasota 3 times and kind of punch out and do that. I would love to do more sailing. I've got 3 kids at home. So I think my aspirations to go bigger and further are probably temporarily on hold for a couple more years. Get those guys grown up and out of here. But if I got an invitation to go sailing somewhere, I'd try really hard to accept it.
Husband sail?
Yes, he does. He's got an 8. Pardon?
When you're so when I go out on my boat, if I decide the weather's bad, I can go down below and I can watch my TV and have a cocktail and, and go to sleep and have a nap if I want. It's a floating, hotel room.
Right.
That said, you pretty much, when you go out to your club, it's a Sunday afternoon. You and the husband go out and just cruise and race as fast as you can, like you would in a race, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Like, if we're going to cruise, we're going to try hard and go. Right. Like we never bring a cooler on the boat.
Okay.
We
All right.
talk about it, but we never do it.
And I
We should.
no, that makes sense. Let
Yeah.
me change subjects a little bit. One of the reasons that we've had a conversation, we've tried to balance this story out in the episodes. I want to ask a little bit about being a female in sailing.
Mhm.
And I sometimes think that they don't get the recognition, or more importantly, the opportunity that some of
Mhm.
their male counterparts might get. And I don't want to start discrimination. I don't think that's it at all. I think sometimes it's just you get caught up into your group of people that you've sailed with your whole life.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think is really true, if you look at our area, guys who are now in their 40s have the same group of, say, Cal 25s. Well, they were
Mhm.
sailing against each other when they were 14,
Mhm.
and they've never moved off of that to include other folks because
Mhm.
they've been buddies for a long time and they're all in the same kind of group.
Mhm.
So talk to me about being a competitive sailor at the level you are. And
Mhm.
does it seem like a equal landscape to you?
Um, well, there aren't that many women around that are doing it. There's a lot of women that are fourth crews, which are typically the crew that come on if it's windy and get off if it's not. I will say the E community on the East Coast in New Jersey, in New York, they always sail with 4 people, and they have a lot more women in the E fleets on the East Coast than we do in the Midwest. I think that the reason that I've stuck with it, I mean, you said everybody, they started sailing when they were 15, 20 together, and the 40-year-olds are still the same. We're kind of the same,
Okay.
but within the Inland Lake organization, you go from an X boat to a M16 to a C boat to, there's kind of an evolution in the boats, and they get bigger and more complicated and faster and more expensive as you age. And so the community has kind of stayed the same and grown into the E-fleet. And I think that I just kind of stayed in the community. And like I said before, I stayed sailing with good sailors, and I was with people that, I could do it. And I was with teams and people that gave me a chance, so I think that that's part of it. Once you're in your 40s, 50s, whatever, and if you're a woman and you want to step into it, it's going to be, unfortunately, I think, a little bit hard to find a team that's like, okay, come on, I'll teach you. Because at this point, a lot of these teams are all pretty established. I mean,
Right.
Sam and I and our team has been sailing together for 14 years. And before that, I was with another group for 10. So it's, it's a pretty tight community, and you can definitely get into it, but it's not the easiest.
I asked the question because I know inclusion is a big subject in every aspect of our lives, and I get that. I don't sometimes and again, I'm outside looking in. I don't see in what would essentially be discrimination as much as I look at it as just there's just not a lot of opportunity. And I look at our club and I don't see a bunch. I mean, I'm an old white guy, but I don't necessarily see that's just all I see. I see a very varied landscape of the kinds of folks that belong to our club. And
You
I think
do?
I really do.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, but more
Yeah.
importantly, I think a lot of times, like you're saying, you're a preeminent sailor and there
Yeah.
may be 6 of you in the country. Again,
Yeah.
an exaggeration. So sometimes numbers play into that.
Right. I can't honestly, I can't really think of any women around here that really want to be into it at this level that aren't, there's definitely more at the Wayzata Yacht Club, which is just, across the lake, and they race keelboats. So there's more women over there, but I'm not aware of any women that are dying to do the jib or do the middle of an E-boat that aren't able to find a spot.
I think for most sports, if you're a skipper, you don't care if you're black, white, green, tall, skinny, can they sail?
Right.
And if they can sail and they can bring, value to the boat.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that gets lost in that formula a little bit.
Yeah.
You just want the best sailors, and hopefully somebody on the boat that, can have a conversation that you like, because you got to spend time with them.
Well, yeah. And I don't know what it is, but honest to God, like almost everybody I sail with, a Scow, C-boat, E-boat, J70, J24, 22, male skippers like having women on the boat. They all say that it's better when there's a woman on the boat. And I don't know what the difference is, but I'll take that. Like, Sure. Maybe it makes them like be a little nicer, or calm down or something.
Weight becomes important on smaller boats, e-scows. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're a 420, you want a certain weight limit. What's the perfect sort of weight limit on an e-scow on a 28?
Perfect is 660.
Okay.
So 660 pounds divided by 4 people. So we choose 3 or 4 people depending on the race. In our regional and club racing, for the nationals, you're required to declare your crew. So when the regatta starts, you've either got 3 or 4, and that's it for the whole weekend. You're committed.
Too light is terrible ballast. Too much is what?
Too much is slow and terrible, and too light is out of control and terrible.
Okay, so if you're using, and again, I'm asking because if you're watching this program and you don't know, that's the reason I'm asking this question.
Yeah.
If 660 is the absolute perfect number, if you came to 659, 12 ounces.
Yeah.
Is 20 pounds more? Where's the delineation up or down that hurts? Can you tell? Is it 40 pounds? Is it 60 pounds?
Well, I don't know. I think that, I don't know. I think that the boat like might have some breakage or some problems if you're too heavy.
Right.
If it gets windy and you're too heavy and you're really cranking on stuff too hard. But my team, none of us are big, huge, tall people. So, having a little extra weight is just fine for us if the breeze is up. We had one regatta this year, our inland down at Okoboji, Iowa. It was windy the whole time. And we had kids on the boat, my daughter, Sam's daughter, and we were light with 4. So for the first time ever, we actually threw on another kid and sailed with 5. And it was amazing. With that extra weight on the boat, we were fast and we were just cruising upwind and downwind. So, I don't know. I don't know where the magic number is, but we're shooting for 660.
Okay. It's almost like jockeys at horse racing. They weigh them to the gram. It's amazing. And then they'll slip weights into a little bit like a car race. Everybody's got to be the same.
Yeah.
That's why
we weigh in crew. Like we don't have to weigh in. It's just like everybody's trying to get there amongst themselves.
Right.
But it's not like a keelboat where you have to weigh in at the registration.
Yeah. Well, if we had 2 of me on a e-scow, you'd only have maybe a 4-year-old to only be able to get on from a weight standpoint. But
and there's a lot of teams that are 3 dudes and they never ever take 4, even if it's blowing 25. They're just 3. So
okay. All right.
I like having a 4th crew because I want the help. I want somebody sitting behind me to back me up and help when I need help, or, if I get tired or whatever, things happen. So having an extra body and an extra set of hands is great.
With improved equipment, does it make it easier to sail boats? And I say this from a strength standpoint. You don't have to be a brute anymore. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think, with more purchase and the way the boats are laid out, it's definitely easier than it used to be. Yes. But you know what? It's a leverage game, I think, especially for women, because we're hiking out and it's like, that vang is heavy. That spinnaker is it's all heavy, and it's not like, somebody like me, I'm not relying like just on my biceps to do it. It's a whole body thing, and it's a leverage and a core, and I'm using my whole body, not just one arm, which might be different if I was a big dude. I don't know.
Do you work out I'm sure you work out for your own gratification, but do you work out as it relates to your sailing? I mean, you plan it like, okay, I've got to get ready for sailing season, like an athlete would?
A little bit in the spring, when you need a little motivation after a long, cold, dark Minnesota winter.
Right.
Like, okay, let's go sailing. It's time to get it going. Yeah.
All right. And the last question on e-boat, is there such a thing as too much wind? Where's the max that you guys look at?
Yeah, our class limits are 5 knots on the low side and 25 on the high side. So if we were going into gusts over 25 or steady wind over 25, the race committee will abandon. It's just too much, too many tipping over, things breaking, people falling out of boats. It just becomes too much for the vast majority of the fleet.
My next question is a lead into one of the last subjects I want to talk to you about. Is what's a new? I'm not really familiar, but what's a new Scow cost at this point?
Ooh, I think a new e-boat is about $60,000 all in, sales, trailer, covers, everything.
So this is an expensive sport.
So, yeah, definitely.
And I'm guessing that a really good, decent older boat would have to still be in the five in the high, 15 to 20,000. Is that fair?
Yeah, there's a boat there's a good boat for sale right now that's 11 years old. That's they're asking 24, and that seems about right.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have a 30-foot cruiser. You can buy it for $1,000. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it really that is expensive. So one of the things you're involved with at Minnetonka is a sort of a charter program for people to learn how to buy boats within the fleet at your club. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know of anybody, and I may be wrong. I have not heard of this program. So maybe explain it, because I think you're the administrator for the program, if I'm not mistaken.
I am. Yeah, it's a charter program. It's through the Minnetonka Yacht Club. We started it, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years ago. We modeled it. Actually, there was a program in New Jersey. I can't remember where, maybe Seaside Heights. They had an Scow scholarship program out there where they were getting people into boats. So we kind of modeled it after that. It started with X boats, which are the junior boats, 16 feet long, 2 kids. You got to be 16 or under to sail them. All the sailing schools here in the Midwest do it, and there's a big championship. So we started with the X boat, and then we evolved into an MC, C boat, Scow, and a Yingling. So at the current moment, now 7 years later, the Minnetonka Yacht Club has an X, an MC, an E, and I better not say, we're working on one other boat. So basically the gist is we advertise this, we take applications, people apply, and the committee selects. And the criteria is that you will, there's a damage deposit, you have to pay your racing dues. We will give you a boat, a lift, the sails, and a mentor to help you. And you get that boat for the season. You need to commit to sailing it in at least 60% of the races at the club and traveling to a regatta if you can. And our goal is to bring new people into the yacht club and into the fleet with that have an intent on getting into it and buying a boat. So it's not really a rental program, but we're bringing in people that really want to get into it, and it's an entry point. And we've had great luck with 5 years in the e-boat. 4 years in the e-boat. The 4 charter people have all bought their charter boats, and then we've re-upped with new boats for the following year. So we're 100% with e-boats, and I think we're about 60% with the MCs. And in 7 years of X boats, we've built 5 new fleet members and boat owners out of it. So it's working.
How many boats does the club actually own as a club that are not individual boats?
Just the charter boats. The yacht club does not own any boats, any sailboats.
Okay.
Yeah.
I look at some clubs like ours. We've got all kinds of 420s and Optimists and those kinds of things. This would be a great program to work out the boats that have kind of wore out a little bit, got tired.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
For somebody that can't afford it, that would be a great way to sort of, instead of ending up on a scrap heap in the back of the club someplace where you 2 years later, because they got fungus on them, you throw them away.
Yeah, totally.
I think this would be a phenomenal program to be able to, charter those boats out and make them viable.
Yeah, it's great. And our boats are, they're not new boats, but they're good used boats that are in working order. They're not perfect. And generally every summer, if there's a little glitch or something, it's kind of like, leave no trace with camping. We're like, return the boat a little bit better than the condition you got it in, whatever that means.
How many members at Minnetonka?
How many members of the yacht club? About 600.
Okay, so if you sell,
some of which are social, they're not all sailing members.
Okay, we'll say
there's probably 250 sailing members.
So you got 250, and you've got, you're selling these boats. If you're looking at 3-4% of a fleet that you're selling in a charter program, that's huge.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And just last year, there were some other inland clubs that wanted the information from us, and we're looking at trying to model it and continue on. Yeah. It's great.
I'm gonna talk that program up in this part of the world, because I think it would be you're stuck buying 420 certain places. You can't buy them from a manufacturer. And it's a game. It's like we're having a lot of discussion right now. It's a conversation we had last week with both the Melguses. Is that if the America's Cup guys are foiling, should we, instead of putting kids in Optimus, should we be looking at more advanced kinds of programs with UFOs or other the kinds of should we introduce foils to kids as part of that program? And it's a money talks, because that's what it boils down to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's becoming a hotter subject every spring, because you have to advance it at some point, I would think.
Well, yeah, and everybody wants to go fast and have a lot of fun,
No, there's no doubt. You're going up a sailboat at 20 miles an hour, you'll never want to go back to going 6.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to go backwards.
Pretty simple.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, well, listen, last question. Right over my shoulder, right over that shoulder, it's an island. So it looks like over here, I'm pointing the wrong direction. Looks like over here, that's somebody's house right there.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So I'm assuming that I'm pointing the wrong. Is that your skiff that gets people in and out coming over to the island? So how do you get to the island? I guess is my question.
Okay, so like maybe half a mile from that island this way, those are all the sailing school boats behind you, 420s and Hartleys. About a half a mile over, there's a public launch and landing, and so the pontoon runs back and forth there. About probably 500 yards straight south, like straight out from those long docks, there's another island. It's called Bug Island, and that's owned by the yacht club. And Bug Island is completely surrounded by lifts. That's where all the members keep their boats, on lifts. I can't tell you how many boats are out there, but it's full.
Right.
There's a little pavilion and grills and tables out there. And then through the bay, maybe, 10 minutes and a very no wake pontoon ride, there's a parking lot and another access. So there's 2 land points to get to the island, to get picked up. And a lot of members have boats and live in the community or on the lake. So they come in their own.
Lots of dinghies, I would think.
Yeah.
Driving back and forth.
Yeah.
How big is the lake?
The lake is big. Several bays. I think the total lakeshore is about 100 miles. It's very big, and it goes pretty far west. Like right here, this yacht club is on the eastern side of the lake. And I think if we were going to get in a power boat and go, medium speed, slow down through the channels, it would probably take a little over an hour to get to the furthest west bay.
Wow. So bigger than Torch.
Oh yeah. Way bigger than Torch.
Yeah. Okay.
Lots of little bays and areas and stuff. So yeah.
A little bit like St. Clair, like we have it here.
Our main sailing area here in front of the yacht club is, I think it's 3 miles north, south, and probably about 4, probably not that big, maybe 3 by 3 in a non-perfect circle. Yeah.
Last question. What's left for the rest of October?
Whew, rest of October. Well, sadly, no sailing. That's over, which is a bummer. My daughter's still high school sailing, so we're going to watch that. I got a couple college visits with my son that's a senior. And I don't know, get ready for winter, I guess.
Cool. Well, listen, I appreciate the time talking with you. I think it's insightful to be able to talk to a sort of a different set. We've tried to be somewhat diverse in who we're talking to on this. And if you know a lot about racing, this is hopefully fun. And if you know nothing, you maybe learn something, just kind of what the aim for what we're doing. And it's been really delightful to talk to you. You're really a very nice young lady.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Larry.